Good morning. I'm Mayor Tommy Roberts. Welcome back to the Mayor's Table. My guest this morning is, once again, City Manager Rob Mays. Rob, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
We've been spending the last several weeks talking about issues that we think are of importance in our community and that we think our citizens would be interested in hearing about. Today, I want to talk about Four Corners Regional Airport. I'm frequently approached by citizens who are inquiring about the status of the airport, the health of the airport, the quality of commercial air service that Farmington is able to provide to its citizens. It's an interesting topic to talk about. There are a lot of issues that affect the service that's provided at Farmington Airport. I want you, if you would, to talk a little bit about the history of the airport.
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, it's almost feels personal, this issue, because for nearly 10 years now, I've been intimately involved with a lot of facets of our airport, particularly commercial airline service and the challenges that we have faced. I still have up on my wall the headline in the paper when Las Vegas flights were started or when Los Angeles flights were started, and some headlines of some of the good news. And so we have had some ups and downs. To really understand the history, you have to kind of go back, and people often ask me, well, we used to have 737s that flew here. What happened? Well, the first and biggest issue that faces our airport historically and today, frankly, is the limitations of our runway length. The FAA passed safety margin, increases in safety margin that don't allow for larger aircraft to fly in and out of here on a regular basis. And those challenges are exacerbated, particularly with density altitude during the heat of the summer and at our altitude levels. And so just about the only kind of commercial plane that can fly in here now in regular scheduled air service are these small turboprop airplanes.
We've seen a number of commercial air service providers in Farmington over the years, going back 60 years ago to Frontier Airlines. Mesa Airlines was what I would consider the first regional air service provider in Farmington, a small company that expanded over the years and did very well here, provided excellent service to the citizens of Farmington in their needs to get in and out of Farmington. Great Lakes Aviation is our current provider. We continue to work in partnership with Great Lakes Aviation to try to service the needs of our community, but we've been challenged in a number of ways. One of those ways is in dealing with the federal regulation. In August of 2013, the FAA implemented a new rule which affected the qualifications of pilots and first officers to fly these regional air providers, and that created a number of issues for Great Lakes Aviation. Can you explain those circumstances?
Well, even prior to the perfect storm of 2013, there's been an economic movement within the industry to move towards larger airplanes, less pilots. That movement has already been, frankly, since 9/11, things have been heading that way, as there's less and less flights and needing to be larger aircraft. And as I already mentioned, those larger aircraft cannot be accommodated here. In August 2013, we were hit with a kind of a triple play of a perfect storm. The regulation that you spoke of, the change that I'll talk about just a minute in more detail, but that was coupled with also there were new rules put in place for pilot rest times, thereby again decreasing capacity, and then the culmination of a rule that changed a few years ago where pilots are forced to retire at 65. All that hit as a perfect storm. But the regulation specifically in August 2013 that you and I have been involved in since the inception of it, we went to DC, as you recall, lobbied against this. We got all of our federal representatives on board to stand with us in fighting it. But what it essentially did was it took an already short pilot shortage and exacerbated it by where the second in command, the second officer, prior to this regulation only had to have 350 hours of training. If it was quality training, they could qualify. That was increased by 6 times to 1,500. So what that means is that a co-pilot in a small airplane that's flying in and out of Farmington on a 19-seat airplane has to have the same experience that a pilot flying a 737 has to have. For a pilot to get into this industry, they have to accumulate between $150,000 and $200,000 now of debt to get their 1,500 hours just to apply, and then make maybe $20,000 to $25,000 a year as a first officer. And so there's a real significant shortage of pilots.
And that's affected the performance of Great Lakes Aviation. Reliability has been an issue in as much as they've had to cancel many flights. I think that performance has improved here recently, but nevertheless, it is an issue. The flying public wants reliability and good, effective costs in the form of fares. So it is an issue. Great Lakes has taken advantage of an exception to that rule. There is an exception for regional air service providers that fly 9-passenger airplanes. And in order to take advantage of that exemption, Great Lakes had removed 10 of their 19 seats. Yep. And further exacerbated the problems. They had fewer people flying, the profits margins were sinking, and where we are today as a result. What I'm hearing from people is if we can't have reliable, effective air service, why do we have it at all? What would be your answer to that?
Well, that's a good question, but it really is a function of market. There is subsidized air service and there's non-subsidized air service. We have not ever qualified for federal government subsidies, so ours is market driven. So as long as an airline wants to be here, in fact any airline is welcome to come here, we would love to have them. So in terms of whether to have it reliable or not, that's a function of market, and Great Lakes is currently holding their own in this very difficult environment. But as you mentioned, when they took those 10 seats out, that corresponded to us losing 350,000 seats annual available to fly out of our airport in Farmington. And so the current model certainly isn't sustainable. The Great Lakes has applied for an actual exemption that would allow them to return back to their 19 seats. And hopefully they'll get that, and we've done all we can to lobby for that. Like I said, you and I have been to DC, we've written letters. Frankly, if that exemption is not approved, it seems unlikely that Great Lakes will be able to continue flying only 9 seats, in a 19-seat airplane. All their fixed costs, stay the same, and clearly that challenges any ability for it to be profitable.
We think it's important to continue to advocate for commercial air service in Farmington, for viable commercial air service, and we don't want to give up that fight. So, I'm pledged that on behalf of the city, we will continue to work in our most aggressive way to secure air service into the future for the citizens of Farmington. People in Farmington have options, though. The La Plata County Airport is not a far drive away, and I know that many people actually travel by car to Albuquerque and take advantage of the air service there. So in reality, the people in Farmington are pretty well served by the air service providers. But there's more to an airport than just commercial air service. There's general aviation, and I believe that we need to continue to pursue a viable, active airport for economic development purposes, and general aviation falls into that category. What do you think the potential is for expansion of general aviation services at the Farmington Airport?
Well, as you mentioned, it's very, very important. I mean, we do have decent connectivity with commercial air service, but there's corporate aviation that comes in and out of Farmington for this area. There's medical flights. Shipping and commerce take place there. In fact, we had a recent study done by the New Mexico Department of Transportation that showed that the annual positive economic development of our airport as is about $21 million a year. So clearly there's a need for a vibrant commercial or a general aviation airport, and we'll continue to do all we can to work towards that. And another area that we focus on is commercial opportunities. We've had talks with a variety of businesses that are aviation related, discussions about them locating on our airport grounds, and kind of a commercial park that's related to aviation. So there's opportunities out there. Just clearly the economy is such that some of those opportunities have not come to fruition as of yet.
As I indicated earlier, I have people ask me about the status of the airport, and again, some people suggest that we ought to just shut the airport down and rely on service out of La Plata County or Albuquerque. We've talked about why we don't want to do that. And other suggestions that come up frequently include extending our runways or building a new runway of greater length to accommodate different capacity airplanes. Another one that's suggested frequently is building a new airport. Building a new airport would cost in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and the FAA is not funding the construction of new airports anywhere across the country. They're even not really funding the expansion or improvement of small airports anywhere in the country. So if the citizens of Farmington are interested in that option, they're going to have to be willing to fund it at a local level. I don't think that is feasible. What's your thought?
No, I would agree, and additionally, the FAA is not expanding the essential air service. I mentioned the subsidized flights; they're not expanding that program as well. So this is going to be a market-driven issue that ultimately we're only going to be able to get what the market's able to support.
And I think it's also important to note that La Plata County Airport is also experiencing some problems, and I know that you've been in discussions regarding that issue. Can you reveal anything about those discussions?
Well, yeah, and related to that, if we built a new runway right now, it wouldn't solve the pilot shortage problem. Right now, larger airlines are starting to have problems staffing their larger flights, even out of their medium and mid-size hubs. This pilot shortage issue is a true crisis, and Durango La Plata is already starting to see an increase of cancellation of flights because the airlines cannot get crew to the airplanes.
Rob, thank you for your input on this issue. I think it's something that our citizens are very interested in. We recognize the importance of a viable commercial air service provider in Farmington, and we will continue to advocate as a partner of Great Lakes Aviation for their continued service here. There are many, many challenges here. It's an evolving landscape and a number of issues that have to be addressed and resolved. But overall, we do recognize the importance of having a viable airport in our community. I want to thank you for tuning in again this morning. We'll look forward to the next Mayor's Table.